What will music be like in 2050? That's the big question I'm going to try and answer throughout 2025. It's a very big question. It's an almost impossible to answer question, which is kind of why I like it. It's trying to look forwards so far into the future that if we don't do anything about all the problems the music industry currently faces, what will actually happen? Will we disappear off into some dystopia, or is there a utopia that if we change things that we might be able to reach? So I started Drowning Sound 25 years ago. It will be exactly 25 years this October. And of course, I'll be glancing back and having fun with nostalgia, looking at the great albums from each year and trying to uncover the patterns in how the platforms and technology have changed music, because I think we haven't really had a proper look at the impacts of both the economics and the economic incentives of the platforms that music exists on, and how that's changed the kinds of music we listen to, the sort of artists that break through, and the sort of artists that don't. Because actually, I think one of the biggest frustrations as a massive music enthusiast and fan and fanatic and all those kind of words is that it's been really hard to work out why my favorite acts are not anywhere near as known as they should be, let alone as popular or as famous as they could be. I think if you really look at the silos within which music exists in and the attention economy that it's battling with, it's really difficult to understand why certain music is and isn't doing as well as it could be and should be. And I think that's part of why I want to look forward so much further into the future, because I think a quarter of a century is a really significant period of time. Definitely, like, I could have done less time in prison, as someone pointed out to me on the Drowning Sound message board yesterday, if I had done that instead of started a music website. I think really thinking about what it is that's in the way, what those barriers are, and how we might end up in a dystopia, how, if we don't change things, that not only will music become less and less relevant to people's lives, and the sorts of artists who can afford the time, the energy, the marketing to scale and have a sustainable career, it's just going to be a handful of few, a very, very few. And the platforms that they exist on, will they even exist anymore? There's a lot of wealth being extracted from music right now, and a lot of that is not being reinvested into infrastructure or artists. And I'm really worried about that. So I want to look at that, and also climate justice. Like, music might not be very important when you are drowning, or when you have fires, or when the resources and energy could be being used to power something more important than your phone and your laptop and the server farms and everything else. So there's that, but there's also AI, the threat that may pose if copyright is not taken seriously and intellectual property is not protected and not treated like a human right. What's going to happen to music? So there's a lot of big questions. There's also the slightly more imminent future of grassroots venues and all of the grassroots music. How does that sustain and survive and thrive? Because for a lot of artists, playing to 1,000 people is what they do. They do 20, 30 shows a year and they play to 30, 40,000 people. They don't play to 30, 40,000 people on one night at one festival. And that is a career. And that shouldn't be something where we see that that's something that's loading up and building up to something else. Because if you can play to that many people in one country and then go do it in another country, that is significant. And we shouldn't really be thinking about music as being everyone has to make it to stadiums or they failed. And I think that's something which in the metrics and vanity metrics of the music industry has been really mixed up over the last few years. So there's some big questions, and there's some experts out there who have some of the answers. So this is going to be like an open research project throughout the year, speaking to the people who have pioneered music, people who have pioneered approaches. I really want to talk to people about different ways of operating as businesses, so like cooperatives, and the different ways in which you can release something as a piece of art rather than as a piece of commerce. I really want to have a look at the different challenges in terms of discovery, because as a fan, I love crate digging around the internet much more than I like doing it in a record shop. I like to be able to browse, and that feels like oh, we can just hand that over to robots. It's like, no, you're taking away one of the things that's joyous. So I'm thinking about all these different things and really concerned at the complacency around some of the biggest challenges facing not just music, but the entire creative industries. And I know that there are people out there trying to bring solutions to life. I know that there are people running music magazines who are trying to connect the music they love to audiences. But I also know that they rely on advertising, and that money is funding far-right grifters that are spreading disinformation for clicks and clout. And that's where the advertising money is flowing to. So if there's more and more publications closing and radio outlets and all the other infrastructure that music relies on, especially as you're first getting into music, I think we forget how the almost like radicalization that happens when you're young, when you're just looking for all the different doors and windows to climb through to find out what's going on in music and different spaces to try out and genres to explore. So I've got a lot of frustrations that I've witnessed over the last 25 years. And I feel like if Drowning Sound is going to do anything, we should be advocating for change. And we built up an audience at one point where there was about 3 million people reading Drowning Sound. So I hope that I can leverage some of that name recognition to get access to different people, to really kind of just like press where my curiosity wants to go and sort of open a few different doors. Like I'm really interested in things like functional music, like how sound benefits us in our brains. And at a time where we've got a global mental health crisis, if music was a charitable thing that was funded because it's a benefit, a public benefit, then we'd look at it really differently, wouldn't we? We would be putting on Wednesday afternoon free concerts when you've got the afternoon of college, like go experience something. Or we would be looking at cultural cohesion due to the ways people meet one another when they go to shows. I think we would also really change how we think about and talk about the value of music if it wasn't based on $9.99 a month or £1 a track or £12 a CD. Like if we actually thought about music in a whole different way. So I'm really keen to speak to people that can do that. And as you all know, if you've listened to previous episodes of the Drowning Sound podcast, like I am really curious, but I'm also really interested in what experts have to say, and I really want to listen, and I really want to patchwork together and find whereabouts, if I was able to map things out and use cartography skills to try and see what the future might hold, then that's my mission for this year, really, to really dig in. And yeah, but also it's an excuse to put interview requests in with Nine Inch Nails and Paramore and Brian Eno and some big names like that, who hopefully will have at least 5 minutes to chat, if not longer. So yeah, really thinking about what 2050 could be. Is it going to be dystopian? How could we make it utopian? If any of that sounds like the thing that you'd like to follow along this year, I will be posting this as a podcast to the Drowning Sound feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. I'll also be doing a few YouTube videos, taking clips from different conferences I'm speaking at. So I'll be talking at Eurosonic in the Netherlands in mid-January. That's the first booking I've got this year. So I'll be hoping to do lots of other things across this year, bringing these conversations into the real world as well as in digital spaces, and kind of patchworking together this story in a collage. It's going to be very much an open research project. So subscribe if you want to follow along on this journey. I would really appreciate it. And I would love to know who you'd like me to talk to. So if you've got ideas of experts in the music industry, musicians who are really pioneering, you think have done things in a really interesting way, charities, organizations, people outside of music as well. Like I'm really interested in learning or understanding what the music industry can learn from other disciplines. Like it could be a biscuit company or a beer brand, but it could also be someone in film that's done something really innovative, an art project. Like I'm really interested in the way things are structured to fit their values, because I don't think most music is structured around the values that most of the people that I know and work with in the music industry hold, we're all sort of chasing this weird like week one chart position and maximizing unit sales. It's like I've never called music a unit in my life until maybe that moment. So really just thinking about who those people are. Like, you can find me all over the place. You can just email Sean@drowningsound.org. Subscribe to the newsletter there too if you like. So 2025, what's music going to be like in 2050? I want to know the answer, and I am going to do my damnedest to find out. Cheers. Bye.